Why is it important to share your personal stories of activism? I'm here with Bex Caputo. Hopefully I said that right, with Bex from BexTalkSex.com. And I'm Kathy Bartulli from the IntimacyDojo.com. Thank you so much for being here, Bex. You're speaking at Woodhull Sexual Freedom Summit in a couple months, and you're going to be talking about your stories of personal stories of activism. I think that's amazing and inspiring, and I want to hear more.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is how when you share your stories, that in and of itself is a form of activism. And that by sharing our stories, we create empathy, and that can be a driving force for change.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm particularly, like, all these interviews have been really fun, but I use story teach copywriting and marketing, and how we can tell our story and be really authentic as marketers and really unique. And I'm like, I can't wait to hear, like, how do you weave that in? Like, what are some tips you're going to share in your talk?
We're going to talk a lot about what it's like to be a person who shares stories and the things we've learned because everyone on the panel is very open. We have Kate Sloan and Dirty Lola, and then Kevin Patterson from Poly Role Models.
Oh, good people, really good people.
Yeah, so Kevin talks a lot about what it's like to hold space for other people's stories, and the rest of us talk a lot about what it's like to be very open about our own stories.
Lola is very vocal about things that matter to her, and I love that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How did you get here? Like, what brought you to the place where you're talking about activism, not only just talking about activism, but using stories to inspire other people?
I think for a very long time, I looked at what I did and the way I share my stories and other people's stories as, like, frivolous. I didn't even really call it storytelling.
It wasn't like you weren't marching and making...
Right. I was just talking about stuff. And, like, I didn't know how that was valuable until I started getting the feedback from people and saying that they felt seen or that they thought they were alone. And these sort of, the messages a lot of sex educators get. But it kind of emphasized to me the importance of what I was doing and the way that, like, that it is a form of activism and it is this, like, powerful form of vulnerability, and it's valuable in a way that it doesn't always seem right at the surface.
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable. I share a lot of times, I'm very shy, and I'll share to people I didn't date for 14 years because I didn't think anyone would want a bigger person. And all the time I have people coming up to me that maybe they're 10 pounds overweight, and they're like, oh, I hear you. Like, I thought I was the only one that felt that way. And if you can do it, I can do it. And I think we need that role modeling. We need that inspiration because it's really tough out there sometimes.
Yeah, one of the things I really love is this idea Kate Canfield introduced me to, which is the idea of being a beacon of permission.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, just openly and authentically living, and that creates space for other people to do the same. And maybe they're not out on the street corner talking about their kinks or whatever the way I do sometimes. But they
you demonstrate with the toys hanging behind you. I love
that. Like, hello, welcome to my room. But yeah, like, maybe it doesn't look the way it does for me, but seeing other people doing it gives people a moment to be like, oh, that thing that I thought was weird or scary or shameful is okay. Because if this person can talk about doing it, then maybe I can at least do it.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I mean, I think it's levels. I know that when I kissed a girl and I liked it, so I thought I was a lesbian, and it was so hard to tell even one person. And then I realized I was more pansexual and poly, and, like, and there's levels. And now I'm, out talking about sizes and other things. It's like, I feel like there's always a next level of vulnerability that we can go to. And even someone speaking about the fact that they enjoy sex is activism. It's a way of saying, no, we get to enjoy this. Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find on the other end, as the person sharing the story, like you talked about, sometimes it's terrifying to tell one person. But then you tell 2 people and 3 people, and now you're just talking about it because, like, the world didn't implode the first time.
Yeah.
So I guess I can just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful for me. A lot of times I'll tell stories through humor because it's the easiest way for me to be vulnerable, but also I feel like it's engaging and people will listen if they think they're going to laugh, right?
Yeah.
But there have been times where I'm like, oh, I can't talk about that. I can't tell anyone that. And then I think of a joke about it, and I'm like,
I
ah,
can
but
do
I'm
it.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to share it with some people.
Yeah, humor, because a lot of the stuff is really heavy, or we've
Yeah.
been taught to be scared of it. I use the analogy with my clients all the time. It's like going to the gym. You're not going to go to the first time in the gym, you're not going to go find the 100-pound weight. You're going to go to the 2-pound weights and just practice a little bit, being open a little bit, and then it gets easier.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And finding that foot in the door in whatever way makes it easier for you to tell your stories. Like for me, it's through jokes and like playing it up. And I love like sit down storytelling where I'm gonna, tell you the epic saga of like I'm very Italian, so the conversations we used to have around the dinner table, right? Where you all crowd and one person's got this whole story about what happened. And I love that, but I also love just casually mentioning things.
Hmm.
Like at my day job, I'm one of the only trans people. We actually recently hired another one. And
Congratulations.
yeah, it's very exciting. Um, and like I'm poly and I'm kinky and I'm open about all those things. And the number of times my coworkers come to me and they're like, "So, about that thing,"
Yeah.
like pulling me into the corner or whatever. And it's just like it's amazing how many people are thinking about it, but they don't think they can talk about it.
There's if you're the one like people come to me for sex advice at work all the time, and I'm like, I mean, I do teach this, but there's a lot of really good people out there, and they're like,
Yeah,
but you're here and you've heard, we know you, so it feels safe. I think
yeah,
safer. So I love that you're weaving that in, and I know when someone comes to me and just gives me statistics or something like this is a problem, we need to change it. I can get that it's important, but if they tell me the story of one person's experience and how they struggled, I'm just like I'm like, what can I do? I want to do it now versus like, oh, there's a lot of people out there suffering, 27% of the population is blah blah blah, and you're like, oh, that's too bad. We should do something
yeah.
someday. Versus, here's this one person struggling. This is what they felt. Can be like, let's do some. Let's make a difference.
Yeah, and it puts a face to
Hmm.
that person's experience,
Yeah.
right? Um, like again, in my day job, the little ways that, because I wasn't trans or I didn't come out as trans when I started working there.
Yeah.
So watching the way their language has changed just through knowing me
Yeah.
is like, because I'm putting a face to it. Like they never, it's not like they actively disliked trans people. They just didn't know. And they learned so much and they care so much more
Yeah.
just by knowing
Well, there's so
someone
much
who
fear
experienced
around
that.
if you don't know anyone, our brain makes stories up that they might be scary or different, and then you meet some people and you're like, oh, they're human, just like they have the same kind of
Yeah,
thing, and it's personalize it so beautifully.
yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
oh, your panel sounds amazing.
I'm
Um,
really excited.
can you tell me why are you excited to share this at Woodhull? I love the space, so I'm curious why.
I I love Woodhull. So Woodhull was one of the first conferences I went to.
Uh-huh.
This will be my fourth or fifth year there, I think. And it's just a really, really great event for me. It's the one time a year I get to see so many of these people because like so many people that matter to me all kind of congregate for this one event.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really powerful and it creates this little space that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Right.
Um, and everyone is really motivated and really passionate about what they're working towards, and I get to meet and spend time with all of these people, and it's just I love it so much. And I'm
Yeah.
really honored to like be presenting there for the first time in all the years I've gone.
Oh,
It's
congratulations.
yeah, it's really really exciting, and I was really glad that they accepted my panel, and it's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
great.
know the competition. There was a lot of competition this year. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I love the warmth there. I go to a bunch of different conferences. It just feels very warm, and people really want to help each other. And
yeah.
so the networking, I'm very shy. So I'm like, am I going to fit in? And I loved how people were like, no, come sit with me, or like, what are you doing? It was just really fun for me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like capital N networking, right? It feels like socializing
Yeah.
and spending time with all these people, and you're making all of these really valuable connections when you do that. But it doesn't have like the pressure that like networking events sometimes have.
Yeah, no, that's great. I can't wait to see you there. Before we send people off to go register for Woodhull if they haven't already, what's a tip if someone wants to get better at being an activist or sharing their story, or like what would you tell them? How would they start?
take baby steps, like you were talking about earlier, right? Share one thing with one person that you think is interesting or helpful or part of your experience. Also, like reflect on your own experience because it's easy to forget all of the ways that we are different and all the things we stand for, and reflect a little bit and see what stories you have to tell and which ways you can kind of share that with even just one person.
No,
But getting a glimpse into someone else's life is super powerful.
it really is, and I love that. I think sometimes we forget because we grow, and then it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
I was always this competent. And you look back and you're like, no, I wasn't. 3 years ago, this was terrifying. And like going back and linking to the journey can make the story very engaging for people
Yeah.
because we all struggled. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing this and for putting this together. I think this is going to be so powerful.
I'm really, really excited to bring it to Woodhull, and thank you for having me here to talk about
Oh,
it.
it's my pleasure. If you're listening to this and you have questions or comments, please leave them below. We'll try to get back to you. Thanks, Bex.
Bye.